All right, let's talk about superfoods. It's a term we see everywhere, right? Today, we're zeroing in on one of the biggest names in the game, Moringa. But it gets you thinking, doesn't it? Is every so-called superfood really created equal? I mean, if you grab a Moringa pod from one place, is it going to have the exact same punch as one grown, say, halfway across the globe? It's a pretty interesting question. So to get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at one of the most famous superfoods out there, Moringa. It's known for all sorts of health benefits, which, makes it the perfect test subject for what we're trying to figure out. Yep, you heard that right. We're setting up a little superfood showdown, Moringa versus, well, Moringa. And this isn't just speculation, it's all based on some really cool new science. So, a recent study from the University of Melbourne decided to dig in and find out. They asked a simple question. Does location actually change a superfood's power? Does the place it's grown make a real difference? It's a great question, and to answer it, they had to get into the nitty-gritty of what makes Moringa so special in the first place. Which brings us to Moringa's secret weapons. To really get what the researchers found, we first have to understand what they were looking for. These amazing little compounds that give the plant its power.
Okay, first up are these things called polyphenols, and what's so cool about them is that they're not just there for us. Nope, they're actually part of the plant's own defense system. Think of it like its personal armor against things like harsh sunlight and other environmental stresses.
And a lot of these polyphenols, they act as antioxidants when we eat them. The best way to picture it is like this. They're tiny bodyguards for your cells. They go around fighting off damage, kind of like how you'd stop rust from forming on metal. It's a pretty powerful idea. So, the scientists were on the hunt for a few key types of these polyphenols. Specifically, they were looking for phenolic acids, flavonoids, and tannins. See, they're not all the same, so measuring each one separately was absolutely crucial to get the full story of the pod's power. So with that in mind, how did they actually set up this experiment? Well, it's pretty clever. They decided to look at Moringa grown right there in Australia, but they picked samples from two totally different climates to really see if their theory held up. And this is where it gets really interesting. You've got location number 1, Queensland, which is all tropical and humid, and then you have location number 2, Western Australia, which is way more dry and arid. The big question is, does that huge difference in climate actually create a different plant on a chemical level? To figure this out, they had a really solid process. They collected the pods from both spots, made extracts, and then ran a whole bunch of tests. And check this out. They didn't just do 1 or 2 tests for antioxidant activity. No way. They ran 7 different kinds of tests just to be absolutely sure they were getting the complete picture. So what'd they find out? All right, time for the results. The big face-off. Queensland versus Western Australia. And what's really fascinating is that the answer wasn't as simple as one being just, better than the other. So if you just look at the total amount of polyphenols, they were super close. The Queensland pods from the tropical climate had a tiny bit more on average. But, and this is a big but, that simple number doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. This is where we get into the details. It turns out it's way more nuanced than that. The Queensland pods, yeah, they were higher in certain things like flavonoids and tannins, but the pods from Western Australia, they were actually better in other specific antioxidant tests. It was becoming clear that each location produced a Moringa pod with its own unique set of superpowers. And honestly, the deeper they dug, the crazier it got. Using some really advanced tech, the team didn't just find a few different compounds. They identified, get this, 111 different polyphenols across all the samples. Just think about that. It just goes to show how incredibly complex this one plant really is. So, what's the takeaway from all this complexity? Well, it points directly to the study's main finding. This isn't just about one having more or less of something. It's about each plant creating its own unique chemical identity, all based on its home turf. The way the scientists put it is perfect. Each region's Moringa had its own unique chemical fingerprint. It wasn't just that some levels were up and others were down. The actual mix of compounds was totally fundamentally different. I mean, how different are we talking? Well, check this out. They found 28 different compounds that were only in the Moringa from tropical Queensland. They just didn't exist in the ones from Western Australia at all. But it wasn't a one-way street. They also found 26 compounds that were unique only to the pods from the dry Western Australia climate. I mean, that is undeniable proof that these plants are actively changing their own chemistry to survive wherever they're planted. So what's causing all this? Well, the study points to a whole mix of environmental factors. We're talking about the climate, the soil, how high up it's growing, even how much sun it gets. All of these things are basically signals that tell the plant, hey, you need to make these specific defensive compounds to survive here. And really, the authors of the study summed it all up perfectly. Their conclusion was that these findings highlight the substantial influence of regional effects on the moringa pods. In plain English, where your superfood is grown really, really matters. And that brings us right back to where we started. This whole study proves that the exact same type of plant can have a totally different chemical makeup just based on where it grows. So here's the thought I want to leave you with. If geography can change a superfood this much, what does that mean for everything else you eat? All the foods sitting in your kitchen right now? It's definitely something to think about.